I was traditionally trained, and we were made a diagnosis and gave you medicine, right? Uh, and we never really talked about the root cause.
Hello, welcome to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Each episode, we bring you a conversation with leaders across the healthcare industry, exploring topics ranging from new treatment techniques and interventions to novel service delivery methods and business models. And now, your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab U Practice Solutions, a leader in patient engagement and retention strategy. Let's explore the possibilities of a new healthcare.
Well, hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Better Outcomes Show. I'm your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab U Practice Solutions. And if you want to develop an effective, succinct, and unique positioning strategy for your healthcare company, technology company, or organization, then check out the Healthcare Positioning Alignment Workshop. If you want to differentiate your healthcare technology, your device, your software, or your organization from competitors, to align your service or your solution to your targeted healthcare stakeholder, then you need to start with a solid positioning. I know I talk about this all the time on the show, but in order to develop an effective value proposition for your company, you need to answer the question, value to whom? Obviously, depending on who you're targeting in healthcare, different stakeholders have different perspectives, and that determines what they consider valuable and the outcomes they seek from either healthcare providers, services, solutions, or softwares. By narrowing down that value to whom question, you have a clear understanding and idea of how your technology, your device, your service, your healthcare company is positioned to solve the problems faced by your targeted and specific healthcare stakeholder. You can do all of this through our Healthcare Positioning Alignment Workshop. Learn more about that at positioning.rehabupracticesolutions.com. That's positioning.rehab, the letter U, practicesolutions.com. You can read more about the workshop, our approach, and then get in contact with somebody on our team, and we'll get you hooked up. So again, positioning.rehabupracticesolutions.com. Alrighty. Well, I don't know. Well, this thing's going to drop in a couple weeks, probably after the whole bulk of this is out in the news. But if you have been struggling with this whole Change Healthcare cyber attack fiasco, I feel you. that's all. That's all I'm going to say about that. I feel like everybody I've talked to recently in healthcare, rightly so, is scrambling. Maybe their practices were using Change Healthcare as their main clearinghouse. Maybe they were looking for authorizations and all of that. It is a mess all the way around. It will be interesting to say the least to see what kind of fallout there is from this, not just on a financial level for practices and systems across the country, but also like from a regulatory and security standpoint, like what is going to be put in place or required of practices and IT departments moving forward. It's definitely interesting times we're living in here. So, without kind of diving into that, because that could be its own podcast in and of itself, this week we are taking a dive into the world of functional medicine. I know we've done an episode of that early on in the podcast, like before episode 100 for sure, probably before episode 50. Maybe it might even be in the first 20 episodes. I'll link to it in the show notes. With a good friend of mine, Cheryl, who's a functional health coach. And this connection actually came about because of her. The people that we will be interviewing this week are Dr. Joe Jenkins and Janine from Doable Health. And they have built an application, a digital platform for delivering functional health, functional wellness. I had started the interview on the pretense of, we're going to talk about the technology and how you're delivering this virtually and all of that. And I don't know if we ever got to there. We talked about the app and stuff at the end, but we really we got on the pre-call and we were kind of chatting about where we wanted to take it. And Dr. Joe talked a lot about loneliness and social connection, and this fact that we live in a world that we're more connected than ever with our social media, with our devices, with the interwebs, and yet people still feel entirely alone. So we spent a good bit of time talking about that, about how loneliness and human connection and all of that affects our well being. And then we talked about kind of the principles of functional medicine, functional health, looking at root causes. Dr. Joe explains a little bit of his background coming from traditional medicine to now doing evidence based functional health. Janine talks about her uh, past background being involved in a car accident, getting thrown through the windshield of her vehicle, and her path to recovery. And then we talk a little bit about functional health in general, and then how doable health envisions um, applying or providing functional health services via their platform. So wide ranging discussion. Definitely one of those. I love having discussions and conversations where you think you're going at it with one angle and then it kind of shifts. Maybe it's like an unexpected topic that you end up diving into, and that's kind of what happened here. Like I said, I thought we were going to talk about the tech behind it all and how it was innovative in that way, and we really ended up talking about things that uh, are true and real in all of our lives as human beings, relationships, stress, anxiety, and what that does to our real and functional health, so to speak. So, without further ado, here's Dr. Jenkins and Janine talking, and we have this conversation around doable health, functional health, and then this epidemic of loneliness in a connected world. Well, hey, Dr. Jenkins and Janine, welcome to the show. How are y'all?
Fine, Rafi. Great to be here with you. Heard so many good things about you from
Oh, well, that's
Cheryl.
good.
Yes,
Well,
thank you for having us.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for being here. I want to talk about lifestyle medicine and kind of dealing with all of the isolation that we were just talking about previously. But before we dive into that, maybe Janine, we can start with you and then move on to you, Dr. Joe. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what brought you to what you're doing now at Doable Health.
Thank you. Yeah, so going back, I've been a health coach for about 17 years now and really got into this field not very different from most people who are led down a healthy path, right? We're looking to solve problems or issues within our own well-being or those that we're in charge of caring for. And so mine was stemmed from a near fatal car accident where I went through the windshield and
Oh, wow.
had multiple surgeries from that. And then, went down this whole path of trying to figure out what felt good in my body. And so it was quite an experience, puzzle piecing myself back together, not physically, well, somewhat, but just trying to figure out who is Janine and what feels good to her, and really appreciating the individuality of that walk. And so as I got into the coaching realm, I really just have such deep level of appreciation for the sanctity of each individual's walk. So couple that with just getting into working in different capacities with physicians along the way, and having my own practice along the way, and then being fortunate enough to cross paths with Dr. Joe Jenkins and our fabulous team that we have now. It really is such a gift to be able to help people to fall in love with themselves. And when somebody radically falls in love with themselves, then all of a sudden the options are limitless. So as the VP and director of coaching, and also an integrative health practitioner that can utilize at-home functional medicine lab testing with my clients, it just opens up a whole nother door of, you're not broken, you're just out of balance. Kind of
Yeah.
gives people their power back. And so that's the approach that I usually take, is not you're broken, but wow, look at all you're doing well. And how can we build on that? Because we don't know unless we know what we're dealing with. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I like that perspective shift from like you're not a diagnosis, you're you, and we're gonna maximize what you're doing well and kind of improve on what you can improve on, right?
Right.
That's awesome. So, Dr. Jenkins, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to what you're doing here.
Well, that's two different paths, Rafi. I was a surgeon and
Okay.
urologist, and when I first started listening to Janine and the health coaches talked, I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. because the way I was trained, of course, as a surgeon, I tried to, correct it by taking it out.
Yeah.
But basically, I was traditionally trained, and we were made a diagnosis and gave you medicine, right? Uh, and we never really talked about the root cause of things. So this is kind of new. It's kind of slowly progressed to where now Harvard has a lifestyle medicine course. Um, because so I was fascinated. I actually ended up being CEO of a public company that it was involved with urology, and it took me in a different path. And then I ended up getting interested, as I spoke to you earlier, about trying to help people reverse chronic disease, but try to help the doctors help them reverse chronic disease.
Yeah.
So it's a change of the system because so many people are frustrated because you go in and get your A1C, you get your CBC, you get your electrolytes, and they're all normal, and you just feel terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. Is it in your head? Maybe it is, but for so many people, that's what traditionalists think. So it's really a fascinating education process. I'll say this, Rafi, life in your entire life is an educational journey.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
when you think you know it all, you're in trouble because you're about to get put in your casket. But I think that so you're talking to a surgeon who really believes that people need to be heard, and that gets to this isolation thing. I think uh,
Yeah.
that where we are today. Um, I'll ask you. Can I ask you a question, Rafi?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. What percentage of young adults, 18 to 22, cannot name one close friend? What percentage of young adults cannot name one close friend?
The optimist in me would say very, very low, but the realist in me says it's probably much higher than I'd like to think. What, 50, 60%?
69%.
Oh, wow. Man.
So, and I was reading today, do you know when if you look back at when, you know, the youth started getting isolated, it really is with the smartphone.
Yeah.
And the first smartphone was in 2007. So with that, we see, and if you look at in one of our, we have these we call them circle master classes, and we have podcasts. And I had guests on, and one of them was a past president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we talked through this about where we are with education in children.
Yeah.
How concerned should we be? And then you think about our lost communities. I'll say medicine let us down, the government let us down, and we lost our communities. And those three things alone, if you think about it, if you just we all became isolated. Well, there was, the doctors disagreeing about what was good information and what was misinformation. The government giving mandates that changed small businesses, that led us to draw in so that we can't name close friends. And then we didn't. Our churches didn't meet. Our communities stopped. We started looking at our neighbors thinking they were viral. They carried a virus. They were dangerous.
Yeah.
They were no longer. So the question is, we've got to reform, recreate our communities, and people need to do that. Now the question is, how do you do that?
Yeah, because like
Well,
you said, we
about
live in a world now where we're more connected than ever. These cell phones are everywhere, and yet people still feel totally alone. They might have their face in their phone, connecting with people on social media or watching things on YouTube or whatever it is, and they still aren't making real, meaningful social connections, right?
right, and if you go through the airport,
Yeah,
well, I mean, what do you see? Exactly what you just said. They've got their face down, and they won't even look at you. You know,
Yeah.
so the question is, what do we do? And that's what we want to talk about, because there are some things that you can do, that we all can do. So, uh, and I think I'll let Janine uh, start talking about, all right, what we need to do, where we need to start, and let's talk about how we restore our faith in our institutions and our communities.
Yeah. Before we dive too deep into the weeds, let's make the connection then for this whole social connection versus isolation and how that ties into lifestyle medicine as a whole, right? Because I'm sure that we can connect the dots for some people that are listening and are like, "Whoa, what's going on? If I feel connected socially, how does that help my health?"
Well, because of the anxiety,
Uh-huh.
because of the mental illness, because people that are isolated, uh, and and again, Coach Finelli has dealt with this a lot. But if you have that anxiety, uh, if what percentage of Americans have anxiety or depressive disorders? Do you want to make a guess?
Oh, I'm sure it's 2/3 or more.
It's high. It's and 50% of the young
Wow.
fall in that category. So you seem to say, okay, we've got this social network, right? But do you really know anybody?
Yeah.
Do, do you do you do you get how well do you get to know them on your smartphone? And if you have some event, are they going to come to your aid?
Yeah.
I don't think. So I think that isolation exists even though we're very connected.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things as well, right? When we think about something called the hormonal hierarchy, at the base of that, we have oxytocin. We've got oxytocin, insulin, and cortisol. After that, we have precursor hormones like DHEA. And then above that, we've got um, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen. So if we're kind of targeting all these other quick fix things without really addressing the base of that pyramid, if you can imagine the base of a pyramid being the most abundant of something that we should supposedly be having. Not saying all pyramids are in our best interest,
Yeah.
but the hormonal hierarchy one is, and oxytocin is connection. So that's very different than dopamine. That's very different than
Yeah.
ding, somebody liked my post. So we are so deficient in oxytocin, and that is everything from romantic love and everything that is involved with those layers of intimacy. It's also holding a baby, right? And for maybe a mom,
Yeah, I was
it's
about to say physical
nursing.
touch is a big component of that, right?
It's huge, and it's the base of all of that. And then it's, snuggling with a pet, which is so amazing and so healing for people, especially people maybe who live alone or just anybody. How great is it to be greeted with the ultimate present creature who's just like, love me now, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what you did yesterday. Love me now. So, it's that I think we're missing the point if we're not addressing the oxytocin, which we do not get from dopamine hits, we don't get from likes, we don't get from winning a video game, and so there is that big component. And of course, we saw what happened. Everybody kind of collectively went through these isolation, but then seeking it out is not always easy. Asking for help isn't always easy. Joining the bereavement group isn't easy. Going and putting yourself around, the energy fields of other human beings is a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I do think a lot of people just don't understand the difference too, right? Like they're substituting maybe dopamine for oxytocin, and they're in their mind they just think, oh, I need more of it. If I get more of it and more of it and more of it, it'll work. But like you're saying, if you're not feeling that base of the pyramid, you're deficient there, and that has all
Yeah.
kinds of implications for anxiety, stress, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
and it
Mm-hmm.
also is, we know that your immune system works better when you have hope, you're not despair. I mean, we know that is true. Think about what we have lived through the last 4 years. Every time you turned on a TV, what did you see? A death count. We got fixated about a death count and rising death counts. I mean, no medicines worked. We don't have anything that works, so the only thing you can do is put on a mask and isolate. So, you know, we know what happened, and maybe it was for, reasons that they thought they were protecting people, but the immune systems weren't working as well during that period as well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's something too about increased cortisol levels decreasing immunofunction, right? And if you're stressed and anxious, like that's what's coursing through your veins.
Yeah.
All righty. So we've established there's a problem. People are lacking in this connection. Maybe they're deficient in some oxytocin, and they know that, and we know that building social connection, real relationship, can help improve some of these real health outcomes that we're focused on. So you alluded to it a little bit ago. What are some of those things that we need to start thinking about doing or incorporating into our lives that can help improve those outcomes based on fostering meaningful social connections?
well, I'm gonna let Janine. I think first you got to discover what we say is your why. You got to discover who you are, and so I think, and I don't want to speak for Janine, that is going to be the first thing you got to do, right? Because if you go out every Friday night and everybody you're with smokes and they insist you smoke, well, maybe that's not the right group you should be going out with. Maybe you need to decide what it is you really want to achieve. Do you want to stop smoking? So you have to just look inward first. Look in the mirror. It's kind of like Michael Jackson. All right. Who's got your back? The man in the mirror. All right. That's where it's got to start.
All right. So
Yeah.
then how do we walk somebody through that? Maybe they come and they say, I've got all these issues and I need to focus on improving my health. I just feel bad. Maybe my blood work does come back and it looks normal, but I still feel off.
Wherever somebody begins is the perfect spot for them, right? So somebody might say all those things, and I'm just trying to imagine all the different
Yeah.
scenarios that I've experienced as a coach. Somebody might say those things and literally the next day make the changes that show up on the food plate, right? Things are changed. They went from 0 to 60. They've cut out, toxic foods and things like that, and that's their place to start. So I think the question is, it doesn't matter where you begin, just beginning is always the hardest thing. For some people, they don't have the support network at home. And so what does that mean? That means I'm going to walk in the door with every intention of preparing something healthy for dinner, and my spouse or roommate or partner or somebody else has other plans,
Yeah.
and there's fast food sitting there. So what do you think happens? I don't think this is something that's addressed enough. That's a point of contention. That's discrepancy. That's a fight waiting to happen on a Friday night. Well, this is what we always do. We always do pizza and beer, like on Friday. What's the problem? Well, hun, I'm thinking about maybe we should be doing this. Well, all of a sudden there is an unspoken, somebody's right and somebody's wrong, right? And it's not about right or wrong. It's just about where somebody is in their journey. I find that so much of coaching is having the hard conversations.
Yeah.
I love you, and I'm choosing to eat this,
Yeah.
right? And dealing with the ramifications. Or I love you, and I'm going to get up and I'm not going to lay in bed and eat donuts with you anymore. And I'm going to get out and I'm going to go for a walk. There is always somebody who feels that they're under the microscope. And so there are tough conversations to be had in any regard when somebody's wanting more for their life, because automatically other people feel left behind, not recognizing that, wow, I have a lot to learn from this person. I can hitch my wagon to that, and maybe we both could do this. So it doesn't matter where somebody wants to start. There's usually a whole bunch of education that goes into it. Maybe they want to just start walking more and getting more steps in. That's awesome. And maybe they want to stop eating as much processed food. Maybe they're going to pack a bag of their own homemade popcorn as opposed to getting popcorn at the movies. It's all good. And I think getting, for an individual, for anybody who's listening, I would say, truthfully, it doesn't matter if you're looking at it as not good enough. I promise you it is. I promise you that all of those little steps that you might think are not good enough because you're maybe around other people who are telling you what you should be doing and how you should be thinking, if you can do something different and have that forward momentum, it's great. And then building on it in your own pace and stop putting yourself out there as if you're a community project. The other thing that goes along with your why and being okay with wherever you begin is knowing how to build a dream team. And that dream team is really important. We talk about that in some of our coaching. Is there's always going to be people who are sabotaging you. You're off, maybe you're trying to give up cookies. So what do? They bake you cookies, right? I mean, there's always people trying to
Yeah.
sabotage. Then there's people who don't mean it with an ill intent. They're just, which we refer to as, the little old Italian grandma, which is how I grew up, right? You're never eating enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not ill intent. It's just food is celebration, it's ritual, it's culture. And then there are the people who, like Dr. Joe said, I'm trying to quit smoking. And I used to smoke, by the way. So let's say I'm someone who's trying to quit smoking. And I have a friend who's like, you know what, we're not going to go there because every time we go there, you're tempted. So let's just go here instead. Those are part of our dream team. So I think it's knowing what you want, why you want it, staying educated and celebrating and clapping for yourself, because the most important like is the like you have for yourself. Forget what everybody else thinks. And then recognize who's really for my highest good, who really is like, you look amazing in that dress. Bravo, right? Or well done. You're having you're having 3 less smokes a day, or whatever it is. Who's the cheerleaders? Because we all could use more of those in our life instead of the passive aggressive comments, the, oh, it's good, but stay away from those people. If you can. We can't always, but if you can, practice discernment on who you spend your time and attention around.
And I'll say that one of the things that you need to know is what you have in your toolkit.
Yeah.
All right. One of the if you've ever have you ever heard of NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness?
Yes. Yeah.
They're nationwide, and they're really good, and they're about peer support community for families and those that are suffering from mental illness, and they talk about the toolkit, and we all have it. It's just a question of identifying what is Rafi's toolkit when Rafi's under pressure, when he's anxious, when he's down in the dumps. What does Rafi do? Is it music? Is it painting? Is it going out on a walk? Is, as Janine said, hugging the dog or taking the dog for a walk? Or is it going for a run, going to the gym? Whatever it is, we all have tools that help us, but we have to identify them, and we have to understand what those tools do. I'm an extrovert, and obviously I like to talk, Rafi. So I at times, after being in the public, I just want to sit down and watch a ball game. I watching a sporting event can really just take me. It just is my tool.
Yeah.
So identifying your toolkit is important. It may be knitting on the front porch. I don't care what it is. It is
the what isn't important. It's that it's doing something for you.
It's for you. And then that allows you, and then you got to find community. You know, I I I challenge our health coaches, and they laugh at me because I'll say, okay, your challenge today is to make somebody you do not know smile. We've gotten so that we're afraid of people, and I think it's really important that we get over that. That we recognize that, and I do it all the time just because something will trigger me. And I saw a guy the other day, and he was 6'8", and he was huge, and he was kind of into himself. And I said, went over to him. I didn't know him. I just went and said, "You must have played football." Well, it turned out he did. He played football in college. He played football in the NFL. I said, "Tell me about name, image, and likeness. What do you think?" Well, then he went crazy. He started telling me what he thought about these guys driving Maseratis. So, and he was older, and he had retired, and he was having all kinds of. But people are surprised. At least that's my experience. And Janine is wonderful at this, by the way. It people are surprised when you speak to them, Rocky.
Yeah, yeah.
They they just are used to be left alone. And so there's a community out there. There are things like the Rotary for people. It used to be all men, now it's men and women, where you do things for other people. It's about service to your community. Uh, and so, Janine, you're a master at making people feel good that you're around.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. I received that compliment entirely. Thank you. I think because we all have our story. It's whether or not we're being honest with it, right? You don't have to stand there and declare it to the world, but we all have our story. We all have our triumphs. I have had a lot of, if I line up all of the things that I feel like I've grown from, sure, that near fatal car wreck was one of them. And after that, there were several relationship things that would have had me kind of dead and buried if I allowed it. But so I think my approach is always goes, goes back to maybe namaste, right? The divine in me honors the divine in you. We're all the same. And you've heard me say that. We are all the same. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. Making someone feel like they matter happens in an instant. It's not, there's no money attached to it. It just happens in an instant when you can hold that space for somebody and say, that had to be hard, instead of personalizing it and making it about me, like people so often do in conversations, right? Oh,
Yeah.
well, you have the flu, I had the Hong Kong flu, or you lost this, but you look so great, you can't possibly be grieving. I mean, what do you mean? You have a designer bag and you're stepping out of your Mercedes. Your husband couldn't possibly be treating you like crap, right? Or what's your problem? You don't have a baby on your hip with a black eye. There is this reverse prejudice that if we are pulled together and moving through the world and not dropping all of our spinning plates, that everything must be okay. But every once in a while, the right person can stop and say, I see you. And so there's these guards, there's these facades that we all have because we don't want to wear everything on our sleeves either. But I think if we all just take a step back and realize we're all just walking each other home, let's hold a little bit of space, whether it's for someone at the cashier counter or whatever. And I'm not always, I'm not always out to serve, right? Sometimes I'm running into the store very
Yeah.
quickly to get my
You
thing
got a
too.
to-do list you're trying to check
Yeah,
off,
like
right?
we're all like that. But I guess it's more of an energetic component. Like we really are all the same. And that to me is the essence of coaching. Is I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to help you help yourself and maybe see things in a different capacity, maybe step out of your own subconscious paradigm of all the things you have been told you have to believe and do in order to be worthy. And that's really where I have grown the most myself is looking around and saying, wow, I could see how somebody would say this thing, and here I am living something completely different. And you know what? At the end of the day, for all the listeners, if you open up your hands, whatever flies away is great. Whatever stays away is great. And you have to be willing to let go and release the grip on the expectations of what you're going to get and not get. And so that's a very freeing feeling to say, if you're with me, great. If you're not with me, great. And we're just going to go from there. So, I know it sounds intense. Dr. Joe
Yeah.
always reminds me, I am a New Yorker, but my days are precious and I've given a lot of them away over the years. And I don't say that in a poor me. Now I practice a lot more intentional living. And that's my hope for everybody else that I work with.
Yeah. And so let's tie this back into the anxiety, the depression, the stress, like the shifts that people can and should make, maybe, that takes them from this place of maybe where they're feeling. I don't know if you hear this from a lot of people. I hear it every now and then. Like, people are going through what they feel that they should be doing. Maybe it's climbing this ladder at the career, at this job, or maybe they're going through the motions on this personal stuff or some social club, whatever it is. And at some point they begin feeling like maybe their life isn't their own. They're living by other people's expectations, right? And the impact that has on their mental health and their long-term immunofunction is no bueno. It's not good. So I guess, what are some of the things that people can start doing to maybe even become aware of that, right? Like, some people might not, they feel this underlying anxiety or angst and they really don't know why it is. Like, are there any tools or strategies, maybe things that you can help, that you walk people through, that says, okay, let's answer these questions or do this exercise, and this will kind of really help understand your own why, and then from there we can start attacking these health issues.
Mm. If I could just say one comment, that's a really great point. When we feel that angst, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We are always, as humans, we get somewhere and we want the next level and we want the next level. That's the whole point. Stagnation, a flat line means
Yeah.
you're dead, right? So the growth that happens with that uncomfortableness of that emotional, spiritual, physical outgrowing of something is an invitation to break through another realm, or to learn something different, or take another class, or ask for the promotion, or say yes to the date, or buy the puppy, or something that you're needing. So those feelings of restlessness, I know they're uncomfortable. They're usually signifying, I want more, right? The question then quickly goes to the judgment of, I shouldn't want more. I should be happy. So we're trying to keep ourselves right where we are. And so there's a whole bunch of gray area, of course, and individuality that goes along with that. But that restlessness, and also recognizing, I had a conversation with someone recently, there are seasons to life, right? You've got two little kids, they're running around, you're tired, you have no time for yourself, forget going to do anything for 2 hours on your own. But also knowing there are seasons in life. I've been through those seasons myself. We've all had seasons in life, whether it's a college student and you feel like, oh my God, all I do is study, or all I do is get up and change diapers, or all I do is punch in, punch out mentality. All I do is, work on these reports for work. But there are seasons. And if we're looking for the growth, I think that's a really great way to reframe and find something positive in that, and say, what is life beckoning of me? What do I want more of? What do I want to experience? And so with that restlessness, it's usually a good sign, if we're being honest, that something
Like, you're on
needs
the
to
cusp
change.
of something, or cusp of
Yeah.
making a decision that might radically change your life.
Yeah.
Well,
And radically change the people that are in your life and everything around it. But the ask is always, am I going to stay here in this box? Or am I going to grow, and who's going to come with me? Who's invited to the next level with me? Because it really is like a game, right? The next level, the next level. And that's the scary part, because then we let people down. We feel bad. We've got religious indoctrination. We've got all these rules of shoulda, woulda, coulda. And at the end of the day, it's a lot. I'm not saying throw it all to the wind, but I'm saying it's cause for reflection, and to sit with it and be curious about what the ask is of you.
and I'm gonna and of course, having heard that, Rafa, you know what we do, um, and what of the value of somebody that's a health coach is. What I have observed is that people aren't. Some people are. Janine said some people get it right quick. A lot of people aren't honest with themselves or anybody else. The value of, for instance, we have health coaching, for corporate clients, for individuals. We have Janine's integrative health practitioner, the lifestyle medicine, the functional medicine deep dives, which are fabulous. But it's the ability to talk to somebody you trust. That's my observation. The first thing you got to do is be honest, and dadgum, that's hard.
Yeah.
If we are really honest, that's that's just difficult. And what I've seen through the years that we've been doing this is if people may take 3 months, they may take 4 months, they may take 6 months or more. But once they trust that it's usually an outsider. It's hard to talk to it's really hard to talk to somebody you really, really know well, and be honest because they know all the people and there may be something that you want to confide. So having that health coach persona that you can actually be honest with is remarkable because that's how you discover your why. You're intuitive, Rafi. Your audience, many people may be able to do that themselves, but so many people can't. And I don't care where they are in society, whether they're the doctors or whether they're janitorial staff at the hospital. I don't care where they are. They have to be honest, and it's such a wonderful feeling when they get there and to see them embrace themselves and then change. So that's a necessity. I think for a lot of people that's a necessity, and that's why we created an app. That's why Doable was created with educational lessons and availability to connect with coaching, both the corporate world and as I mentioned individually. So and to be honest with you, because one of our cities, it's our corporate client, the police, when George Floyd happened, were under tremendous stress just from everybody, and they
Oh
asked
yeah.
us to create a program for them. And we said, well, we don't know anything about it. How are we going to do that? And so actually, the chief didn't believe we could help him. And he was coached by Janine for a year. And he came back to me a year later and said, you guys can help us. So we created a program specifically for first responders. So our goal is to help people. And it's not just as I started out, let's just help them physically. Let's help them in their entire aspect of their life, live the best version of themselves that they can be, whether that's physically, mentally, socially, however we can help. So that's what we're trying to do, and having a good time doing it, I might add.
Well, you kind of opened it up there. So tell us a little bit about Doable Health. You mentioned the app. So what are some of the ways that y'all are kind of getting this out there? You mentioned something about master classes and some coaching. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Well, the circles master classes. We one of our clients said, could y'all do something for us that's different? Maybe some on mental health and some on the toxicities in our world. And so this was really Janine's creation. I shouldn't be talking about it, but it was. And so I should shut up, shouldn't I? I have to deal with it. Look, I work with all these health coaches, Rafi, and they're just brutally honest. So, uh,
Well, she said she's willing to have difficult conversations. So,
Yep.
and she's from New York. Oh God, and I'm a Southerner. I got no chance. But
I know. We cover the bases though. We
yeah.
do.
so you have
Yeah.
these master classes. So we did one on anxiety. We did one on, and these were just 30-minute live sessions. Janine's on reset and detox. Uh, we had one on movement that was at 6 a.m. in the morning because one of
Ooh.
our health coaches is really into all kinds of movements and CrossFit and yada, yada, yada. Uh, and then we had one of the coaches had a circle on uh, healthy meal planning, you know. So it really was, and I kind of was a variant because I did the mind, the mental health, and I had guests, had I mentioned the pediatrician, had a the marketing director from NAMI, and people and everybody. Families are complex. Now I'm jumping around, but families are complex, and all of us have issues, and there is support for families like NAMI, whether it's NAMI North Carolina, NAMI Georgia, and there are support systems that people can reach out to. Our psychiatric system is not very good, and it's really hard. 50% of mental illness starts by the time a kid's 14 years age.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, and it's
really,
linked to
really,
so much, right? Homelessness. Most people that are homeless have some kind of some run-in with the mental health
absolutely.
system, and were probably failed by it to some extent. And
And
Hmm.
so that's where these resource groups come in. And there's a most people don't know it, Rafi. There's a 988 suicide line now.
yeah,
Most people don't realize that they call 911, but there's a 988 suicide line. If it's what they call a warm call, they pass it off to NAMI. In other words, it's not somebody that's in imminent danger in their opinion, the counselor. But on the other hand, if NAMI gets a call and it's somebody who is really in that spot, they refer them, they get them the counselor from the suicide prevention line. So these resources are available. But back the circles, master classes that truly Janine created the idea is
Yeah.
is one thing.
So, just to thank you, Dr. Joe, for that, because Circle Master Classes. So, what is that and why did we create that? Because we have an app, we have accountability tools, we have incentive capabilities built into the platform, we have competitions between teams, departments. We've got all of that built in, private messaging, coaching calendars, all of that. And from there, we know that everybody learns differently, right? You and I might be in session and it might be great and you like that time and it's a good thing. And maybe myself and someone else, they like group learning. They like to sit back. It's the guy who maybe looks like he's not paying attention and he is, right?
yeah, yeah,
So who are we to say how people learn? So we decided let's do live courses, master classes on different topics that we roll out different topics throughout the year. People can register. There's recordings. They can chat with each other or with the presenter while they're on. And so that's been wonderful because a lot of people do like live learning and connection. And when you've got, whether it's, a church or an organization or a group or a CrossFit or a master class, we've got people there aligned with common goals and common, it just kind of is this built-in support network. So that's why we have, that's why we created that. And it's really the whole point is so that people could feel balanced, reduce illness, possibly get off medications if that's what something that they want to do. We are not, as a coach, I'm not a doctor, but I align with the dream team. We do partner with different doctors. We help clients walk into that and make the most of that out of their 4 to 7 minutes with their doctor. Okay, what are you going to ask? Why do you want to know it? So giving them the language and the power to utilize that time wisely is so freeing for them, right? They don't feel like they're just stuck in the system. So that's kind of Doable's whole mission, is connecting people not only to themselves, empowering themselves, and being that ripple effect. When we coach somebody and we know that they're going home and their spouse is maybe cooking differently, or their children are asking for different things, doesn't happen overnight, right? I had two kids who ate chicken nuggets because I was the soccer mom and I lived in my car, and that's what we did. Um, and I didn't know better. And you free yourself from all the shoulda, woulda, coulda, but it's like, what can I do now? And the human body, given half a chance, is always
Yeah.
regenerating, always new cells. And so it's never too late. It's never
Yeah,
too
it's like
late.
that old Chinese proverb, the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best day is today.
Right, right.
And
Exactly.
it, and we're not fanatics. We know that people need to celebrate. We know they need to have a have something at Christmas and Thanksgiving. And I mean, it's so we're not saying no, you can't do that at all. Um, so we're yeah, and to be honest, the integrative health practitioner idea, uh, it, functional medicine, you can't get in to see one,
Yeah.
and it's so incredibly expensive. So we thought that that really made a great additional asset to what we were doing, was to make that available, and we found that to be the case.
Yeah.
So
And you
so
mentioned
we
things about like home lab testing. So you send people lab kits so they can test themselves and get their, I guess, results of what is it, blood work and hormone levels or something like that? How does that work?
Absolutely. So, in consultation, if somebody's interested in that, based on their symptoms, their goals, their intake form, I might recommend, hey, out of all these labs, I think this is the biggest bang for your buck. You can always do more, but I think if we do these, it'll give us the missing pieces that we're looking for as to why you're still having these symptoms, or why maybe some of your traditional blood serum lab work is coming back in normal range, but you're still not feeling your best. So it's kind of a deep dive into deficiencies and toxicities, be it heavy metals, fluoride, things like that, or vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or pathogens like bacteria, parasites, all of those things that can just create, oh my gosh, like you don't know until you have these tests. And so, yeah, they're at home. They can be hair sample, uh, saliva, a blood spot, stool test, and let's see, what did I miss?
urine, urology,
And urine tests,
urine.
like a deep dive into your whole gut
Yeah.
microbiome, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So
That
yeah,
topic in and of itself is fascinating. All of the research coming out about the connection between microbiome and, even mental health and physical health. It's just
right,
over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be interesting to see what that opens up as far as future medical treatments and stuff like
right.
that.
And I'm sure, like you just said, yeah, you find it fascinating too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
do too, because I look at these tests. There's no test that I've ever ordered.
Yeah.
You know, on organic acids and all of these toxicities and they're not things that we ordered in our practices. It's a new world, but the surprise is it really gives you an insight into the person that's there. And as Janine says, she's not a doctor. But she's trained to help you figure out what you can do to help yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, a
And
lot of it I feel like is empowerment. Most people just don't know if they don't have the information, they lack the confidence to make the decisions that they need to make, right?
yeah,
hmm
yeah. And
hmm
we were, I guess, and you can tell us to be quiet when you're ready to cut this off, Rock, because we feel all because
There's a trap door. It'll just
oh, okay. Well, I'm already used to that. I've already protect myself against that. That so so some a company approached us because they knew we reached a lot of people and said, would you mind telling people about our supplement? Well, I said, we don't do that. I mean, we don't know whether they work or not. But this was something new and it was interesting. And so um, I looked into it, talked to the girl who was a bioscientist with Pfizer, and then she got out and did stuff herself. And it was fascinating. And so I had some left hip pain. And I said, okay, I tell you what I'll do. I'll take that. And if it's something called superoxide dismutase. I
It's
don't know if it's
Self-Fit.
not. So I
Self-Fit.
don't know if you've ever heard of it. And this was made by a company called Self-Fit. Uh, and so some of us, I said, look, I'll let our team use it and we'll see if anybody has any impact. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I didn't have any left hip pain. I said, well, that's crazy. So, and then several other people said they could sleep, that really changed their sleep pattern. And I had a guy who wrote a famous book on the Civil War who said it allowed him to work. He was like 90 years old. He said it made him able to get on that treadmill and go, 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 go. So, and then I stopped it just to see what would happen. Well, dadgum, the pain didn't come back. So, you know, this is a surprise for me. I was totally skeptical that this would do anything. I mean, that's crazy taking superoxide dismutase that's it's naturally in your body, but it's usually in such in small concentrations. It's just super athletes have high concentration of it. So, anyway, we have learned, we try to, and I'm going to challenge your audience. And I'm not going to, they can all call and ask about, they can all get on Doable, and it's 2Os.com.
Yeah, and we'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can find y'all and connect with y'all.
And they can call Janine and they can call me. They can do whatever. They can reach out. But the challenge I'm gonna make for them is, I want them to think every day how they're gonna make somebody they don't know happy, smile, or appreciative of that somebody reached out to them, that
All right.
somebody noticed them and saw them and just made that comment that Janine said, gosh, that sweater looks nice. Now, we live in a different world. We can't do that to some people without offending them.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's a sensitive world. But that's my challenge to your audience. And the other is, you can control your lifestyle. It's hard. You may need help, but you can do it.
All
Yeah,
right.
the question is, do you want to live life by design or do you want to live by default? And I heard somebody say that and it just really made a lot of sense. If you ask me,
Yeah.
I know there's a ton of things I can't control, but I'm going to control what I can
Exactly.
and find peace in that.
All righty. Well, I think that is a good place to end it there. If people want to connect with y'all, learn more about y'all, I know doable.com with two O's is one place. Is there anywhere else you want to point people to learn more about it?
If they go there,
They've got it all.
Yeah, they can see it all. They can get in touch with us there.
And we even have a link to that product Dr. Joe was talking about, just because it does work. I've got a couple family members on it. It's a great thing. So it's called Self-Fit. It's on there as well.
It's
But
in if you go at the top, it says resources, I think, and it says toolbox, and you can hit toolbox, go down there, and there's a direct link to Self-Fit there if somebody's interested in it.
All righty.
But no, and here's my dream, Rafi. Are you a sports fan?
No. I mean, I watch the World Cup every 4 years.
yeah, you're outnumbered, Dr. Joe.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Thank you, Rafi.
All righty. Have a good one.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Like I said at the beginning, took a dive into some of those social things, very early on. In fact, it's one of the principal chapters in the book, Better Outcomes, A Guide to Humanizing Healthcare. early on in this podcast, I did an episode on the biopsychosocial approach. And basically, the tenets of the biopsychosocial approach is this: that we are not, as humans, not just the sum of our tissues and muscles and our skeletal system, right? And our physiology. We're more than that. And everybody has come to this realization over time. I think you're going to be very hard pressed to find a clinician of any kind right now that thinks that the only thing you need to do is fix this mechanical piece over here, this physiological piece over here. I think everybody understands now that what happens, at least psychologically, affects physical healing as well. And the biopsychosocial approach basically just says that, like, we are a sum of our pathophysiological processes, whatever's going on with us physiologically or physically, what's going on mentally or psychologically in our brains, and how that impacts, fight or flight and stress, and what that does to our physical well-beings, our, the cortisol and other stress hormones. And then we are also influenced by sociological issues or environmental issues, right? Socioeconomic status, support for healthy lifestyle changes, if that's something we're trying to do, the epidemic of loneliness and what that does, as we discussed, to anxiety and depression and all of that. So it's definitely one of those things, like I said, I thought we were going to talk about technology and then delivering lifestyle medicine and functional health via that way. And then we ended up taking this deep dive into really something that I think is one of those topics that cannot be discussed too much, I don't think. It's very easy to feel like we are connected with people, to be in a world where we can open up Instagram or Facebook or whatever kind of social media tool we're on. Apparently, like, TikTok is the thing now. I'm going to show how, like, uncool I am. But it's very easy to have those things and then to still feel entirely alone. And the impact of that loneliness on our health cannot be understated. I think I'm going to totally ad-lib here. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, and I don't have the research or anything, but I want to say in that Harvard study, the happiness study that they, the long longitudinal study where they followed people for years and years and years, I want to say one of the correlations in that study that they came up with was people who had strong relationships, strong support systems, lived longer and healthier than people who didn't. So again, one of those things that I think we need to be reminded of in this world. So anyways, thank you for Dr. Jenkins and Janine for taking the time out of their day to talk with us about that. And if you are interested, we'll link to their website on the show notes at rehabupracticesolutions.com or at betteroutcomes.show. But their website is doable with 2 O's, so DOOABLE.com, Doable Health. Go check them out and learn more about functional health, lifestyle medicine, and all of that. Alrighty. If you like the show, I feel like I was going to give all the plugs and all the things, but we're over an hour now, so we're just going to get you home, right? That's what I used to tell people at the university, students at the university when I was teaching. Like, we're over time, we're going to get you home. So if you like the show, share it with somebody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a rating, all that good stuff. You can sign up at betteroutcomes.show, and we'll keep you in the loop with all the cool stuff we're doing. Until the next time, be healthy, be safe. I'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Our hope is that you walk away from each episode informed, equipped, and empowered to push the boundaries in your own practice or business. We want to give you the tools to help you build strong, long-lasting relationships with your patients and clients, helping meet their goals, improve their health, and achieve better outcomes. Learn more at www.rehabupracticesolutions.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.